there are people looking.
I'm refreshing my Facebook feed right now. Let's see. Are we on?
I don't see it yet on Facebook.
Oh, are you running it at the same time?
I just have it open. Yeah.
Everyone's on.
Here we are. We're on. We're live.
Woo!
Yay!
Hi,
Okay.
Facebook.
Hi, everybody. Oh, Kevin says we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mu-tini Hour. I'm Tung Crystal. I'm the Artistic Director of Theater Mu, and I have these wonderful guests with me today. I'm Diane Phelan, who is a performer, Broadway performer, and a director. She also founded the Broadway Diversity Project, which we'll talk about a little bit today. And she's here with Ariel Estrada, who is a performer also, and the artistic director, the founding artistic director of Leviathan Lab, which is an Asian American theater in New York City. They're both in New York. And finally, last but not least, they're joined by Brian Kim, whom a lot of you know in the Twin Cities. He's a Twin Cities artist. You may have seen him in Theater Mu's Fast Company recently. I also had the great pleasure of performing with him in Mixed Blood's production of the world premiere of Interstate, the musical. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh,
and
hello.
We're talking today primarily about, and we'll have a little fun too, but we're talking today primarily about Racism as a Virus, the campaign that Diane and Ariel helped start. And we all have our signs. Show our signs. If you all want to make a sign at home too, now's the time. You can, create Facebook profile pictures and Instagram photos with your signs. So so Ariel and Diane started this campaign to bring light to acts of racism during the COVID crisis. And most of these racism incidents are occurring against Asian Americans. So Diane, would you like to tell us a little bit about the campaign?
Yeah, thank you. So I had been in a conversation with another friend, actress Vivica Chow, about stuff we were seeing come up on the news. And she is someone who is quite an outspoken activist herself. She's kind of a wonderful jack of all trades. She's a designer, was in Saigon, but she's just somebody that when I was talking with, she was like, oh, it's so crappy that this is happening. And I was like, yeah. And instead of just being like, yeah, that's really too bad, I was like, we should do something about it. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, and I had seen a picture just earlier that day or the day before of people protesting the acts of racism that were happening. And it was like 4 or 5 Asian people. I'm sure most people have seen this picture in the news because it's the AP has been using it as a stock photo. And they were holding signs and just gathering and being angry. And I was like, whoa, that is powerful. You don't see that too often. That's what needs to happen. And so in my conversation with Vivica, I'm like, we should get all our faces together and speak up and say something and let the president know that no, we're not okay with calling it the Chinese virus. Because there was some headline or another that he was like, I'm sure everybody would be okay with it. And so many of my friends are being like, we are not okay with this at all. So I had texted another group of friends being like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this? And I think my original hashtag was like, stop racism or something like that, something totally not catchy like that. And Ariel said, hey, how about racism as a virus? And it like punched all of us in the gut. And you know that if you respond to something that other people might as well. So we sent an email out to every last Asian person that we knew and worked with and said, hey, would you be willing to do this? And I had printed this sheet out really quickly and was like, hey, how's this look? Everyone's like, okay, great. So I took the picture and happily, a lot of our friends had decided it was something that they needed to speak up about as well, and that it was something that was important to do. And it kind of spread around. And since then, a bunch of team members have come on to help with the campaign, and there's still a lot of work to do, but that's been where we're at.
Thanks for that explanation, and thanks for the history of how it started. Ariel, how did you come up with the hashtag?
Well, first off, there's nothing new under the sun. So I want to say that racism as a virus actually has been used before by, I believe, by a a Black and African American group that was, and so I want to make sure that give them credit for it. But it actually just sort of came to my head when Diane actually mentioned the first name, because I was like, I could use a little bit of pizzazz. So it's pizzazz. So it's like, what about this? And we found out later that it was used by another organization, or another group movement, but it hadn't been used in a very long time. And I figured, you know what, this is really apropos for the moment. So it ended up being this big thing. I think we were mentioning the Times, right, Diane? And then Asian News, and then NBC News picked it up.
Journal.
Yes, yeah. So it's been great, and unfortunately, it's still, the statistics are still very, very bleak. Right now, there's over 100 attacks a day, right? Anti-Asian attacks a day, right now. If we are going, do everyone know Corky Lee here? He's a wonderful photographer, wonderful actor. He was on the board of Asian American Arts Alliance for a while. I think he's still on the board of Museum of Chinese in America. Anyway, he pointed out on Facebook the other day, it's like, if we keep going at this level, we're going to end up having 3,000 attacks against Asian Americans by the end of the month. So that's kind of horrendous, actually, by April 30th.
Wow, yeah, we were saying that I think so far the count is 1,100, and
Wow.
it might get up to 3,000 by the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And Ariel and Diane and their team's goal is to create change. And so I want to take a moment to let you all know out there how you can help out. So first of all, we're getting the word out through this live broadcast. And so if you'd like to start a watch party, you can do that. You just share this link so people can watch on Facebook or your friends. You can also sign in. And I know you're thinking, I do that at the theater all the time. I fill out surveys, but this is a new platform for us because we're a theater and now we're going online. But if you sign in, then it lets our donors, our funders know, and us know how we're making an impact and who we're making an impact with. So if you go to that sign-in link that Kevin, our fearless marketing director and producer, is going to throw into the comment section, you can just link onto the sign-in form to let us know who you are. We really appreciate the information.
Lily, you are killing it. You're killing it. Well, no, I don't know any other Asian American theater that's doing this right now. I mean, I think East West Players did something last week.
They did Crazy Talented Asians.
Yeah.
But you're doing it like every darn week.
Well,
this is amazing.
Thanks for saying that. I just talked to Snehal today. Shout out to Snehal and East West Players, and they're planning more programming. Thanks for saying that. I mean, we got a little bit lucky because we weren't in the middle of a production when the COVID lockdown started. At least the theater wasn't. Brian and I were in production on Interstate, which closed early.
I didn't know you were in it. That's awesome.
Yeah. I played the mom and Brian played the dad.
Clearly, always. I'm always the dad.
We're both, going into that older age range. So
I've been going into that older age range my entire career.
Yeah, me too. But luckily for Theater Mu, we weren't in the middle of a production, and so we had some time from the get-go to think of programming. And for some of you who don't know about my background, I came from the world of television and as a writer-producer. Before I came to Theater Mu, I had a dual career as a writer-producer and as an actor and theater maker. And so when I came to Theater Mu, I thought, I don't have to do TV anymore. And now look, I'm doing broadcast again. So I think because it's in my blood, like you can take the girl out of TV, but you can't take the TV out of the girl. So it was easy for me to say, hey, let's think of ideas, and the staff at Mu was great. Kevin, Tiffany, Shannon, and Audrey, and we all powwow about and brainstorm about ideas. So hopefully it's making an impact. And if you all like that, the programming that we're doing, please consider donating. There should be a donate button on the video. And if there's not, then Kevin is going to put in our donate link into the comment section. You can go to theater.org. theatermu.org, and donate there as well. So, and we're also going to talk about how you can make an impact in terms of donating to Racism as a Virus, because they are launching their fundraising campaign today. And if you have any questions about that or anything else, we're welcome questions in the comment section. Please feel free to drop them in there and Kevin will get them to us. Do you want to talk about your, well, actually, let me first ask you, what is the impact you hope that you're making, speaking of impact, with this campaign?
Go for it, Di.
Okay. What we're imagining is that every single person we know will get up there and say something about racism, ideally with our hashtag, but it doesn't matter if they use our hashtag or not. There's other organizations out there that are, we just want to shout out to Wash the Hate, and we want to shout out to Hate as a Virus, and there's other people that are doing some community organizing. So the important, what we imagine is that first, every Asian face that we know in the world saying something about this. And I say Asians first because it's important for us as Asian Americans to say something for ourselves. And we want all of our allies to do the same as well. But it's important for us to first take the personal responsibility and get angry and take action and say, and clap back and say, no, you can't do this to us. That's, to me, is an important step. So that is my dream.
Yeah, that's sort of a offshoot of, of the model minority myth, right? It's and it's hard to, it's hard not to buy into it, right? It's sort of like we get this sort of negative programming about we have to be polite, we have to be polite, we have to be, don't rock the boat. We also get, sometimes we'll often get that from our immigrant parents who needed to do that to survive, right? But I think we're at a point now where we can let's not be polite anymore. It's not, especially we're literally getting attacked and killed on the streets, and it's not acceptable for us to sort of just take it at all. And one of the things that really sort of drew me to what Diane was envisioning in this is that we won't be polite at all. We're going to be right in your face. We're going to sort of belie the model minority myth, which is an instrument of white supremacy anyway. And it's designed to pit us against our Black and African American brothers and sisters. And instead, be vocal, be loud, be rude, be in your face, fight back. Fight back against this. This is not acceptable that we're beat up in the street. It's not acceptable that Asian American businesses are getting there's a statistic that just came out that vandalism against Asian American businesses at a time when nobody has any money coming in to even fix the damages, it doubled from 7 to 14% right now, and that just came out today. There's a group right now, CAA, the Chinese for Affirmative Action, and the Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council, who are doing this wonderful aggregating project where they are gathering together all the, where people can report attacks, and I believe you can be anonymous on it. So, because they recognize that, not, in self-defense situations, particularly with people of color, people may not feel safe to report to the police. If you feel safe to report to the police, I highly encourage it, because at least there'll be a record of it. But as we all know, as people of color, sometimes it's not safe to report to the police, right?
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about that, and I wanted to ask Brian about how he feels, because we're in the Twin Cities, you two are in New York, where a lot of these incidents are happening. So I'd love to talk about a little bit about in another region of the country, how that's working. But in response to what Ariel said first, there are some hotlines, and Kevin will put those into the comment section, hotlines for you to report acts of racism. And there's a Minnesota hotline. There's also one for New York. And because the artists in this room right now are from the Twin Cities and New York City, we don't know the other hotlines around the country. So if you know them, if you're out there watching and you know those hotlines, please feel free to put them in the comment section. that's really helpful for other people watching to know what the resources are. And so Brian, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. How do you feel, you live in New York, but you're isolating in Minnesota. And that's probably a very different kind of experience. So how do you feel? Do you feel like there's a lot of racism here, or?
I think, like we talked about, I think Minnesota has exuded about as much typical racism as I normally see here, which is a lot of like not being racist outwardly, but just, maybe you look at somebody different. We're very polite in Minnesota. They call it Minnesota nice. Others call it Minnesota ice. And I think to a degree, that has helped keep maybe violence down. Like our isolation feeling here, especially in Minnesota, is drastically different from New York. And, I don't know that people feel the same pressure cooker going on. And if they're, but at the same time, I do witness those microaggressions when I'm at the grocery store and somebody's really paying attention to what I'm touching or where I am. And,
God.
and it's, and I was experiencing that in February before I even came to Minnesota. I was feeling it on the trains in New York. So, those types of microaggressions, like, it going unchecked, they just continue to compound and then turn into something where somebody gets slashed across the fact that these are people who are willing to go and attack children inside like a grocery store, like just shows you the how far people are willing to go with this misinformation and racism. And unfortunately, we don't have anybody in the country unifying a movement of facts and science to combat this. So you've got a lot of people, acting out of fear. But regardless, it doesn't make it right.
Right. Yeah, I think what I tell a lot of my friends, especially my white friends, is that I haven't yet been a target of blatant racism, and yet there's enough violent acts going on, like you said. 2 kids and their father got slashed or knifed in a market in Texas, and Ariel told me that yesterday or this week, a woman, there was an acid attack on a woman taking her trash out
in Brooklyn.
New York City.
Oh.
Yeah, and so the fear of those has put into many of us, so we don't even want to go outside for fear that it might happen. So now when I go out, I try to go out with my husband and my son, and I don't like to go out alone, or I wear my sunglasses, hoping that'll hide my Asianness. But as Francis Ju said last week, that doesn't hide your yellow face. So it's definitely an issue, and I appreciate that you all have come on to talk about your experiences with it. We have some questions that people have raised in the comment section, so I'd like to answer some of them. But before we do that, I forgot to do a toast. Everybody here. I have my drink.
Mu-tini hour.
Mu-tini hour. Cheers to all of you. Thanks so much,
guys.
Yay.
What do you all have? I have some.
I have a seltzer water.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Drinking.
Mom and Dad don't have alcohol in the house, so.
Well, that's
sorry, Brian.
Good. You're being good.
It's okay. Yeah.
I have a gin and tonic but I just kind of juiced it up with like this. This is like, I got this in Spain last year when I was. You can still travel to Europe, but this is like a violet. They love sort of violet or floral things. So this is a violet extract.
Okay.
Ooh,
So it's
fancy.
I know.
Yeah.
I just put a little bit in there, so it tastes like spring.
Oh, that's fun.
I love that. This is what I like to call an elixir. I'm on the Whole30 again, and so I know I had to
so
because
impressed with you that you're doing it right now.
Well, I wasn't, and I was kind of like drinking daily, and then my liver was like, "What are you doing, girl? Like, stop!" And I was like, my liver hurts. So I went back on. But so I love to make these things. I love to talk about my elixirs because they're health elixirs, and so this one's made with lemon juice, ginger juice. I put elderberry syrup in it. There's some vitamin D drops, some B12, some licorice.
Wow.
Did I put some reishi in there? And then I just topped it off with I put some seltzer water. Yeah, I'm really excited about these. I want to have these elixir parties and just like help people with like customize them for their wellness. Cause like I drink one of these almost every day.
I'll come. I totally want to know.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as I can get back to New York, I will come and try your elixirs.
Now wait a second. So there's no flight. You can't fly out of Minneapolis right now, right?
No, you can. So it's actually been an interesting thing. I don't know when I'm going to get back, but I could technically go back like tomorrow. But I do feel that I don't, in talking to friends there, and even I just had a great conversation with Jason Ma today. Happy belated birthday, Jason.
Happy belated birthday, Jason.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. And like, I have a little bit of that New Yorker survivor's guilt where like I want to be in the city, my home. Like I've lived there now for almost 9 years. So like it's home compared to Minnesota. But there's nothing I can do right now. Like me being there would just be an extra body taking up space and using supplies that maybe other people need. So I'm fine in Minnesota. I have a cabin that I get to go to.
Ooh.
I'm comfortable. So, but I do have solidarity. I do feel for you all, and I slightly wish I was locked up in my apartment with you all.
You so don't. You so don't.
Yeah, Ariel and Diane. I mean, it's hard. Our hearts, are with you all in New York. We know that it's ground zero, and we've been thinking about you all the time. So
it's like there are sirens every day. It's like I think they just there was an article that came out today about they're opening up a potter's field, basically.
Yeah, I saw there's like a drone footage of it.
And what's the not to be too much of a downer here, and I've got a drink, so it'll help. But they, the death toll is what, 12,000 now? It's pushing 13, right? Mm.
Yeah, it's just a friend of mine. Shout out to Beth Stores. Her father recently passed from that. So
like I have at least two friends who got at least three friends who got really ill from it.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go to the hospital, but they said it was the worst cold they have ever had. Like, and they're still like, and it's like sort of lingering, even though they're sort of recovered from it now. It's lingering. Like they get short of breath by just sort of walking around, and like luckily they'll be immune when the next wave hits in the fall.
Well, so we're talking, so the thing about it is it's so hard because we're talking about COVID virus and we're talking about racism. And so for a lot of us, I think we're dealing with, fear of both things, fear of racism and getting COVID and, having loved ones get sick and pass and or knowing friends who have loved ones who have lost their loved ones. So we just want to say that we're in solidarity with all of you, wherever you are in the country, but especially with people in New York. And I used to live in Shanghai, so my friends in China, it's also been really hard. I'd love to go to the comments from people who have asked questions, and just shout out to some people who joined: Marianne Ebert, Rose Van Dyne, Catherine Campbell, who are part of our Interstate crew. Lindsay Harder joined, Alex Trono, Derica Louie. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
And I also want to give a quick shout out to my husband, because every time he makes me a drink for every Mu-tini hour, Eric, and I always forget what it is, but it's Chambord, 7-Up, and vodka. I got it.
Stop it. Heaven.
He put it in the comments. He's like, once again, your drink is this. So I wouldn't forget.
A raspberry ginger.
Everything.
Oh.
I love a Chambord with like a sparkly situation.
Yeah, I know. It's delicious. Maybe after your whole 30 is done, Diane, you can try it.
Diane,
I'm going
Albert
to.
Quisson is accusing you of buying your elixir at Costco.
Of course he is. Where is he saying this? On Facebook?
Yeah, it's on the Facebook.
Always,
Hi, Albert.
Hi, Albert. Just big shout out to Albert, who's a main part of our Racism is a Virus team. He runs our Instagram and has a big part in has a huge say in what we're doing and in the direction we're going. And he's the biggest troll ever.
Hilarious.
Love you, Al. Shout out to us.
So
Albert is a New York-based actor, Broadway dude, but he actually has connection through Mamma Mia to a local actor here in Minneapolis, Jen Burley Benz. And they're like besties. And so if
Oh.
anybody watching knows Jen, just like, you know, you see now how small and connected our world is.
Yes,
And, like,
so connected.
You know, it's nice. It's a fun thing.
So Jay Garcia has a question, and this is a really interesting question, I think, because it's theater related and racism related. My main worry as an AAPI actor in the Chicagoland area is after the crisis, the prejudice towards AAPI actors will still be prevalent without saying it.
Oh.
So there's that question about, you know, I was in a meeting with the Coalition of Asian American Leaders, which is a Minnesota organization, and we were saying how, and I think we also talked about it last week at Mu-tini Hour, that there's been racism, but once we're out, like once we get out of lockdown, it's highly probable those incidents will increase because everybody will be out. And on top of that, how do we deal with that in terms of the theater industry in particular? Do you think actors will get less, I mean, there's already a problem with representation on American stages, but do you think this will keep Asian American actors from getting hired even more so than already?
Yeah, go ahead, Ariel.
Go ahead. I was just in a meeting yesterday with my cohort. So some of you who don't know, I would do some work with Theater Communications Group, and I met with my cohort of fellow arts leaders. You know, we were just sort of talking about, like, okay, look, yes, it's a really, really scary time right now, and of course it's even more intense, of course, for Asian actors right now. We just, like, especially in New York, like we had, you know, I'm just nationally. I also do some work with Coalition of Asian American Theaters and Artists, CATA, right? And I'm just, you know, and I do their social media. Follow our Facebook page. But I do our social media for that, so I get the privilege of, like, just sort of seeing not only what's happening in New York, but everywhere across the country and even internationally about with people of Asian descent creating theater. And it's before COVID hit, we were in a golden age as far as I'm concerned, right? We just had 5 shows in New York, 5 just amazing, wonderful shows that are just so diverse. And we've got the work of Theater Mu, and we've got the work of East West, and the Porkfield Players in Seattle, and shout out to Roger Tang up there, right? And all these wonderful, but not just sort of in major cities, but there's also stuff going on in Dallas. There's also stuff going on. There's Jesse Zhao out there in Texas, right? Wonderful director, right? And in New Orleans, and in, like, all these cities that you wouldn't expect, Boston, right? There's a Asian American led group there. Everyone's doing this amazing work, right? And I don't think that that's going to stop. I think that we're going to continue, that there's a hunger for it. I think too, that we were talking about, this is a real opportunity to change, like, you know, we're in this terrible time right now where the entire world is changing around us, right? And we can either go back to what we were doing before that created this mess, or we can do something different. And I'm hopeful that we as a theater community, and not just the Asian theater community, but all the communities within that, can create something new.
Yeah.
Do something different.
No, I completely agree with you on that. And I think what's important to remember too is be hopeful for a change in the future, but also know that hope requires a lot of work. And I think what's great about the 4 of us that we have assembled just here with this meeting is, like, we all have at one point gone into the business and got tired of what was available for us. And so we went out and created our companies, or we make films, or we write plays, or we've done all of the above. And I think, you know, for Jay, the thing to remember is that until your producers and directors and writers and the people, you know, on the other side of the table change, we're always going to run into the prejudice about being an AAPI actor. And so there's a part where you have to play the game, because that's what our industry is right now. But you should, because everybody is being forced to reset right now, it's actually a great time to think about what your personal contribution can be to that movement. You know, and not everybody can write, not everybody can direct, not everybody can, you know, it takes work and it's hard. But, you know, I think what's exciting is that this does give everybody an opportunity to focus and have kind of a gift of time to think deeper about what they want to put out there.
I also think this is the time that speaking up now, because there's something to speak up about, is gonna change the status quo. Like, to me, with everything that's happening with these like now we've gone from like microaggressions, and as you've said, Brian, and how in Minnesota it's just kind of like this underlayer of like, okay, we're gonna just like give you looks, or we're just gonna kind of expect you to yield to us on the sidewalk, or those kinds of little random weird things. Now people are getting spit on, people are getting slashed, people just think they can walk up to an Asian person on the street and do whatever they want to them. And so now that there's something we can actually point fingers towards, that's something we can mobilize around.
Yeah.
You know, and so I definitely say, like I always say, I've been trying to really impart the idea that racism as a virus is a campaign to get everyone angry, but there is a movement coming. You know, a movement is something in which that we will all mobilize and change that. And that feels like it's happening. It's happening within this conversation, with just the fact that you guys here at Theater Mu want to have this conversation. It's about gathering our communities, from the micro communities to all of us, to just start saying, like, what do we want to change? And my hope is that with racism as a virus is that the first step is feeling those feelings and getting mad and saying, yo, we got to do something about this. You know, our parents taught us that it was honorable to stay stoic and silent, but that is not helpful. That kind of, that's not as actually helpful in terms of taking part in the conversation in America about what it means to be American right now. And we get to speak up and take that active part. So, you know, I think that if we don't say something, we could go back to auditions and still have the prejudice towards AAPI actors be there without them saying that. But this is why one of the first steps of speaking up, gathering, talking about this is what's important right now.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that sort of like to go, I mean, especially like anywhere, not just Chicago, but like this is, if racism as a virus is going to teach anything, again, it's that, you know, we don't have to be silent. We don't have to put up with this crap, right? Like, you know, at all. Like, and that includes in casting or in the room, right? There's all these wonderful people who have been doing this work. I mean, of course, with KATA and of course with APAC here in New York, and I'm sure, and all the regional, the Asian American theaters throughout the country, right? And, you know, I honestly think too that this is a really wonderful time to start building coalitions, right? We've, you know, a few years ago at the TCG conference, Theater Communications Group conference, I had the privilege of being part of this wonderful gathering of like all the major theaters of color in the country, right? And it was just this. And we all sort of made this pledge with each other to start doing more work with each other. And as you know, it's as with anything with theater, we always get involved with our own projects, and some of that stuff starts reducing a little bit. But I have noticed that just by little increments, like we're all starting to do more work with each other. We're all starting to realize that like we are all in this together, and that we can't just sort of be siloed anymore, and that we're going to have to start working with other theaters. So it's like, so to Jay, again, I would just say, look, we have the AAPI community there to lean on, but we've also got other communities also to help their causes, because there's, you know what's happening here in New York, just on a larger scale, it's the coronavirus crisis is as we all have probably heard in the news, if you haven't, here's the download, is that it's disproportionately affecting communities of color, right? Yeah. And like, and if anybody has been seeing what's happening in one of the epicenters here in Elmhurst, right? Elmhurst is this wonderful community. I did some work out there 2 years ago, right? It's this wonderful community with Asian, that combines Asian and Latino and African communities out there. And it's this wonderful mix of cultures out there, but they're being devastated by the coronavirus right now. It is horrendous, and it's affecting Latino communities most of all, but it's also affecting the African community, African immigrant communities. It's affecting the Asian immigrant communities. It's just killing a whole bunch of people of color, and that's not acceptable.
Ariel, because you talked about coalition building, and there's a lot of conversation right now on the chat and the Facebook Live about how, if and how we're working with other groups in terms of other racial groups. So John Schill, who's on our board, shout out to John, asked, how is racism as a virus building solidarity with groups fighting anti-Blackness? Kathy Shea, shout out to Kathy, says there are—
Kathy, hi Kathy.
There are Asians for Black Lives Matter groups around the country trying to build solidarity. What we're experiencing right now is what Black people experience every day, every year. So how can we translate our efforts into broader support across race? And Tree Vo also had some comments about, who also is a big supporter of Mu, and artist here had some comments about, you know, how are we building coalition, or how have you been, or have you thought about doing it?
I'd love to take this. So this has been brought up to us, and this is something we talk about. And of course, the minute you talk about racism in America, the first thing you're going to think about is Black Lives Matter and the African-American communities, and how they've been affected, and how important it is to stand in solidarity with them and to help them with their fight as well, because it's all of our fights. Racism as a virus, to me, is about the violence against Asian Americans happening right now. And yes, it's important to talk about the racism against the other communities, but we need something that is ours for us to focus on us. And it is important to build solidarity, to reach out to those other communities. But my concern right now is to get— I'm sorry, my guitar is about to fall over, and I'm trying to I'm dancing with it. You know, I think it's important for us, you know, because there's been a lot of people who've been like, well, you know, I don't want to say anything because what about Black people? And I'm like, what about you? What about what you're experiencing? You are allowed to say something about what you are experiencing right now. I mean, this campaign is all about owning that, and owning the individual voice and the individual emotions about this. You know, as we go on with our campaign, it's going to grow, and there's going to be more things that we do. Right now, you know, that the things that people are talking about, are you reaching out to these other groups? What are you doing? How are you community building? That's the work of a movement. And movements are very important. And right now we are a campaign, and it's deceptively simple. People are like, what do I do with all this anger? Well, you feel it, and then you speak out about it, because your simple act of saying no as one human being, you set the boundary. Like, I tend to get a little fiery on subways because there's I'm a diminutive mixed race person of color, a female person of color. And, you know, we're all fighting for space on subways. And sometimes people will just think that they can, you know, say something to me, or step on me, or just take up my space, or expect me to yield. And every time, even if I'm in a bad mood, or in a good mood and I don't want to deal with it, I say something, because I don't want them to feel that they could do that to the next Asian person or to the next female. I say something because I'm like, you can't treat me and people that look like me like this. And so if I say something, if I just go, oh, you know, it's fine, I let them push me over, I let them knock into me, and without saying sorry because they think I'm a second-class citizen, you know, I mean, they won't say it out loud, but that's what their actions are doing, you know? So I say something. So, right. So back to the original point. Yes, there will be things that can and will be done. And hopefully racism as a virus, as a campaign, can go into moving those things. There's talks in our entire campaign group. But right now I'm super focused on getting my Asian American brethren to be able to find the courage to say something. And to use your faces to say something and push back against this.
Right.
And that said, it's sort of like John and Kathy, thank you for those suggestions. But Kathy especially, like, I actually didn't know there was an Asians for Black Lives Matter group around the country. I know that one of my, everybody knows Gavin Trinidad here, right?
Yes.
You guys know him? Oh, I love Gavin, wonderful Filipino dramaturg. he actually did tons of work with Black Lives Matter, and he and I've been talking about like trying to get more how to get that involved. I mean, right now it's sort of like we're literally in this, like Asian people are getting attacked in the streets, and we're trying to deal with the immediate stuff right now. But as we go forward,
yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, this is going to be the new normal, right? Especially in New York, right? We're looking, Broadway was just closed until June, and probably longer.
Optimistic.
Yeah, that's very optimistic at this point. And like until we get a vaccine, this is our new normal, right?
Yes.
So this is like racism as a virus is going to be around a long time, unfortunately, because as long as there's people who are trying to scapegoat Asian Americans for something that isn't their fault.
You know, I think it's important too, like you were saying, that this is the new normal, and you know, that doesn't have to be an apocalyptic viewpoint, but I do think we have to be realistic about what is coming ahead. I think part of, you know, one of the biggest things we could do wrong is being unprepared, and you know, so I think, and with this racism is a virus hashtag and campaign, I think the specificity of it for Asians to coalesce around is important right now, because I think there's a lot of times we find fatigue in getting behind every movement. You know, we're a progressive people, and we want equality, rights, everything for everybody around the world. But sometimes we have to focus on the groups that we have the most immediate effect on, and it has to be incremental changes. And absolutely, being an Asian who actually speaks up for being discriminated against or attacked or harassed, like that's a huge step forward, even though it seems like, you know, maybe it's not everything all at once, because it can't be.
Yes, I think that, you know, in all, I mean, the comments I think have touched upon this is that, you know, we start with what's immediate in our own communities, and we hope that once perhaps that has, we've made an impact and things start to change and get better, that then we can look outwards and of course support intersectionality and the safety and the equity of everybody. And thanks, Kathy, again for that hashtag, because I didn't know about that either. Tree says that it's not exactly a movement, more of a pillar of left-wing Asian groups broadly. And there have been comments that, you know, it has affected, the virus has affected, like you said, Ariel, communities of color, especially the African-American population. And David Hyun says, I also worry for those trapped in migrant detention centers. Hi, David. We're having a hard time protecting ourselves.
David, we love you, David.
And I miss Love Bug. Mwah.
I want to know David.
David's
awesome.
Yeah, me too. I don't know David very well.
Oh, he's such a good actor.
Yeah.
He's
my neighbor in New York. He lives like a block and a half from me, and it's very convenient and helpful for self.
He says hi back.
Yay!
So he says, I worry about those trapped in migrant detention centers. We're having a hard time protecting ourselves and our fellow BIPOC. I can only imagine the difficulties and fear they're facing.
I can't even, yeah. I definitely am in the moment where I've been so wrapped up, I've been kind of myopic about what I've been focusing on, because I think I would fall apart and cry thinking about everybody. I can only think about what's happening on this block and in my refrigerator, and and just, you know, I can worry about my Asian folks and family, and I just spend so much time thinking about everybody, and it's a lot.
Yeah, and just so you all know, you know, social activism is hard work, and people need to understand that social activists often do it for no pay. I mean, they're, you know, Ariel and Diane are volunteering their time to put this campaign together. And we'll talk about, you know, they have a GoFundMe going on, and you can look at their link in the comments. So please donate to them. And they're raising money to, not for themselves, but to make t-shirts for their logo. And so I just want to say that, because I think that oftentimes we talk about what social activists maybe aren't doing, but the fact is that oftentimes it's not paid work. it's because people believe in the impact that it makes, and we can't fight every fight, and so we often choose the battles that we can fight, and then spend the time we have on top of that to build coalitions and to support other people and other groups in terms of intersectional social activism.
Yeah,
so it's a complicated process.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing activism for like, so I've been lucky enough to be able to sort of like to use activism to basically fund my acting career, like my acting projects.
Ariel does like 5 different things. Like Ariel's like, I had 3 readings today, a rehearsal, and
I wrote 5 grants. I wrote
5 grants. I changed legislature and equity, and I'm running racism as a virus for you. And I'm like, but like still with a smile on his face. And he wait. He also has baked, like, I don't know if you guys follow him on Instagram or
on Facebook.
Food. He's cooking gourmet meals.
Kevin, show his pictures of Ariel's meals. We have photos of his meals.
Oh God!
Oh my God! Oh yeah! Okay, that is a white chocolate coconut and Malibu rum cookie with macadamia nuts too.
I'm
it's
so
delicious.
glad I don't live with you. I would love to live with you, but I'm so glad because I would be rolling around.
Or my roomie Carrie Patrick Martin, who also edited the film that's for our fundraiser. He's
eating well.
He's eating
well. What is that?
Oh yeah. Oh, that is a hummingbird cake with pineapple, banana, and coconut.
That looks delicious.
Did you make that up, or is that like?
Who's that? That's my wonderful cat of the Beckett twins. That's Gogo. Gogo, she's napping somewhere. I wish I could show her. She's my sort of.
It's almost time to bring her cats out, huh?
Yeah, I know. It's sort of she's my little favorite thing. But she's when I had a free meeting with with Lily the other day, and Gogo jumped up on my lap, and she has this wonderful habit that grosses out Carrie. But she has this wonderful habit of like being able to suck her own boob as a comfort thing. So she sits in my lap and she just sort of
she was sucking her own boob in his lap, and I'm like, God, I wish I could do that.
It would certainly.
That was a little off color, but
no, it was actually perfect, Lily.
Lily is always on color. After working with her in the show, I know she is always 100%
my type of person.
It would certainly make quarantine a little more interesting.
Well, my goodness. I mean, what can I say?
What's in that drink, and can I have some too? Oh my gosh! So yeah, cats and baking.
Anyway, I'm lucky enough to be able to do that work, but it's so. I've had to learn from doing. I worked for Asian American Arts Alliance, and I'm doing work. I work for Actors Equity now in the Diversity and Inclusion Department, right? And one of the things that is so important for anybody doing activism work is that you have to take a lot of breaks and do a lot of work do a lot of self-care, because it's kind of thankless work, and it doesn't pay a lot. So you have to take care of yourself, and take the time to recharge, right? Because it's not. Yes, it's sort of in many ways it's its own reward, right? Because we are doing stuff to try to change the world, right, and make the world a better place. But it's it becomes it can become frustrating, right, to be going against, because not everybody wants to make the world a better place. Some are actively trying to make the world a worse place.
I think that's something that we can expand to what our situation is right now for November. Like I have my own beliefs politically, and whoever wants to have whatever. I'm assuming a lot of our viewers are not in support of our person in office right now. But I think what we can learn from is that you can influence certain people that, you know, are immediate to your circle. Like you can have these greater campaigns that can get a lot of exposure, but part of, you know, the fatigue is that you send out so much energy and then you don't really necessarily get it always back, or you feel the change, or you feel like, you know, it's a lot of energy that you have to put out into the world.
Kind of like being an actor too.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and I think sometimes, like, you know, I, even for my own self, like prior to COVID happening, I was trying to think about like, how would I actually influence my direct circles for the 2020 election? And for me, it involves a lot of like, you have to just reach out personally, because, and that's, I think, something that we forget, that we have that power. Like, you know, we post it to Facebook or social media and we expect people to see it, but actually, like, you know, pick 5 people and reach out to them within the week, just, and with the intention of like maybe having the hard conversation, because they're going to get a lot more from it, hearing from somebody that they maybe care about or are friends to a level, than just reading a meme or seeing a picture. And so, you know, I think we can learn about that for the election, but also with this campaign. Like, you can post things, but if you see something, say something. And that goes for, you know, our allies who aren't Asian, like, you know, and I think that's what all of these movements socially have always wanted, is just to find people to publicly support the movement. You know, it's not enough anymore to just say, you know, behind closed doors, like, oh, I believe in equality. It's like, no, like we've let a lot of things go because we've been polite as a nation, and now it's time to make people be accountable for their actions.
Yeah, I will say that one of the things that changed my life was the Me Too movement. And what happened for me was something as simple as other people telling their stories. And I know Brené Brown, I don't know if you guys know her work. She does a lot, she's a sociologist and does a lot of writing. She wrote that book, Daring Greatly, and this wonderful book called The Gifts of Imperfection. And she talks about how sharing your story gives other people permission to let go of their shame and share their stories. So when the Me Too movement happened, #MeToo, people were sharing their stories about something that they were, that brought them a lot of shame as a woman, something that happened to them that they felt like they were carrying. And when I shared my story, 50 to 100 people wrote on my post, and this was over social media, and they said it out loud. And from that moment on, like, I walked down the street differently as a woman. I knew that I wasn't alone. I knew that my story was heard. A weight was lifted off of me. Like, when I walk down the street, I don't yield to white men in suits anymore. And they kind of know better now, because everyone got up together and said these things, that women should not have to have the onus of them on them being slut shamed or anything, that everybody got to like tell their stories. And that is my dream. Like, it's enough. It's enough for people just to say something together. You know, there's something powerful, but it needs to be said out loud. I mean, and you can, I think for right now, social media is out loud for us to be able to stand up and say it. Yeah. It's huge. So people are wondering what they can do with their anger. You can say something out loud, you know? Yeah.
So there's a couple questions. I'm sorry.
I said, sorry to interrupt you, Lily.
Oh, no. I'm sorry to interrupt. No, you're the guest. We're here.
Talk away, Diane.
You talk. So they're not here to hear me talk. But a couple shout outs, and in terms of taking care of each other, and like you said, like saying something, and also practical pieces of advice. There's a couple questions from Rose Van Dyne, and also from Grace Troy.
Oh, Grace.
And Grace. But first, I wanted to give you a piece of good news before I read their questions. So Kevin has told me that Racism is a Virus, your Facebook page, has hit 1,000 likes. Just
Yay! Thank you for joining us. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Yeah. So everyone, if you're on, go like their Facebook page. Racism is a Virus, and you can find links there. Can they find links now for your Vimeo and your GoFundMe?
Yep.
Great. Go on there. I also put in the comments, you know, how to donate to them. So feel free to do that. So a couple questions just for, you know, tips on how to, and trust, you know, we're all artists who are social activists. And I want to give a caveat that we're not, you know, well, I'll read Grace's question first, and then it'll be obvious. Like, we may not be experts on this specific thing. Would you recommend practical steps like learning martial arts, mace, etc.? I'm a 5'2" woman with disabilities. I feel relatively okay in my suburban area with significant amount of APIs, but you never know.
I actually am have trained martial arts for 25 years.
Oh, great! So you're knowledgeable about this.
And then I started.
Well, that was a very special martial art.
But that's a huge story behind that. But
Yes.
and I also
theater
soon. And then I also started back when I was really deep in it. I started a self-defense program called Outsmart, which I taught several times for a couple corporations and for out professionals here in New York. And so I guess first I recommend, like, everybody should take. I mean, just bear in mind this is just my opinion, right? But I think everybody should take a self-defense class at some point, because it's just good to know. I mean, a good self-defense class that is worth its salt will say that the best self-defense is to run away. To get the hell out of the situation right away, right? And to escape, right? And so it's like we used to call it the 5 fingers of self-defense, and the first finger is your thumb, and thumb is always escape, right? You should always just get out. That's Carrie. Yeah, that's Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Yeah. Right. You should always. Yeah. Brian just says hi. That's my roomie. You should always escape. And then I think Grace also talked about, like, so if you have, and preferably you should, because you're a woman, you should, like, every woman should take it from a woman self-defense teacher who is a woman. Like, I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, again, this is just my opinion, but I don't think it's particularly appropriate for men to be teaching women self-defense, because it can be triggering.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never thought of that, but thank you for that advice.
Yeah, it could be incredibly triggering. I mean, it's sort of like, you know, you deal with 1 in 3 women have underwent sexual assault, and then to have probably the likely same gender of the person committing the assault teaching them self-defense, it's just very triggering and not particularly great. I mean, it doesn't teach them that it's okay it doesn't provide them a safe space with other women have a role model of a woman teaching them self-defense.
No, I agree with Ariel. Like, I think you need to I think it doesn't hurt to have any type of self-defense training for anybody. But it's like what you were saying. I think also the other most important thing you can do is just be aware. You have to be paying attention to your surroundings, and you have to know what's around you. Because we don't live in a perfect world, and it just takes a moment for something to go south. And
also, your gut is always right.
Yep.
It is. If you feel uncomfortable, you should leave. Like,
before anything happens. Like, I had a situation like that where I felt like I thought someone was following me, and I was like something in my head just said, put your head down and walk faster. And I want to be like, oh no, don't judge that person. I don't even know who I thought it was behind me, but I was like, don't judge that person, just whatever, be cool. But then I did. And then 20 feet behind me, somebody was getting mugged. Like, I guess he thought that I wasn't a target anymore. And then he went after somebody else. It all ended up fine, but your gut is always right. Your gut will always be right.
Always trust your instinct.
Run away.
And then Grace also said mace and stuff. It's just like, look, those are great. You know, the only thing I would say about weapons, any weapon, is that weapons can always be turned against you.
Yeah, you got to know how to use it.
Yeah, you bet. If you're going to be carrying a weapon with you, like mace or any other weapon, you had better know how to use it. Because right, it's like I remember, like, what I always used to teach in my self-defense classes, sort of like, if you, like, somebody said, well, I've got mace, and they go, oh, do you have it with you? And then invariably someone would take it out, and it would take like 5 minutes for them to figure out how to do it. And then they were like, and they said, so here it is. It's like, you know, you're pointing it the wrong way. You're going to spray yourself in the face with it. It's just like, oh, look, the wind is blowing. You just the wind just blew mace in your face, right? It's sort of like The best self-defense weapon you've got is your feet and your voice, right? So your feet so you can run away, right? Run away, and then your voice so you can tell people about it after, right? And that's one of the wonderful things I love about racism as a virus. It's like we are telling people this is not okay. We are using our voices, right? And that is the best self-defense you've got is your voice.
In line with that, with that question, with Grace's question, Rose had a question, which is, how do you suggest we react when ourselves or loved ones are confronted with racist remarks or attacks?
Oh,
I think the best thing to do is, I mean, it's hard to answer this question because like you don't want to put yourself in danger. Sometimes the best situation is to leave, but if you feel like if you're not in danger, I mean, it's just something like a simple, like, you can't say that, or like, no, you can't do that. Or, I mean, my favorite thing to do when people are misbehaving or behaving badly is I just take out my camera. I just take out my phone and start filming them. And then that way they get it. They're like, oh, we can't, they know what's going to happen. They're going to end up on some like TMZ show, or like, they're going to end up on some, like jackfruit or like Next Shark with like racist all over their faces, and people will find them and get them fired from their jobs. Like that's what's happening now. So like if you see something, take out your camera and just start shooting, just start filming them. And then that usually gives them the idea that they should stop what they're doing, or you'll catch them on video and we'll all know who they are.
Yep. I've been doing that. I've been doing that all, like, I can't take it anymore. Like, I'm tired of dealing with it. So I, like, when I am being brown in a store, which is like, that happens all the time, the crime of being brown in a store, right? And I'm just like, there'll be no one in the store except for me and then white people, and then I get followed. Like, I am the person that they are following in the store. This happened to me at West Elm the other day. I turned around, like I could feel him behind me, like the clerk, and I immediately turned around, like super fast, because I could feel him behind me, and going like, "You are following me, and you are racially profiling me, and I don't appreciate it." Right? And it's actually a self-defense technique called naming the behavior. Right? Name the behavior. It's what we're doing right now with racism as a virus. Right? We are naming the behavior. It is racism. Right? And this is, you call it out. You have to call it out, and for what it is, right? And it's like, I've been so proud of the Asian community in general, like in the business, right? Because with groups like APAC and the work that Kata has been doing, right? We're calling it out, going like, look, you can't not cast us like
and
that.
Like with facts too, like it's like that's like the best thing. You're like, well, how do you fight these numbers? Like, this is what's going on, so what do you say that? And people are like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it's just so brilliant. You can't fight facts.
I also read somewhere, because Brian was talking about what our allies can do if you're not Asian and you see an act of racism, and how a bystander, speaking out can do so much wonders. But we also want to stay safe. We want our allies to stay safe. And I wish I remembered the source, but one recommendation was, if you're scared to say something, if you stand next to the person being victimized and just stand there and not silently, that does a lot to encourage the person hurling the insults to stop, or the perpetrator to stop, if you just stand with the person that's being victimized.
Because all of a sudden it becomes not just you, and especially if they are, they're of the same community or something, they'll realize, oh, it's sort of like they'll get basically shamed of like being like, there's, or there's another technique is to like go up to them and like go up to the person who's being victimized and just start talking to them and pretend that you know them. Right, and then they ignore the person, and they suddenly, or ignore the attacker or the perpetrator, and that's also a technique, although it sometimes doesn't work, depending on how altered or how angry the perpetrator is. So, it's, again, sort of like safety is paramount, right? And that, there's, especially now. I mean, look, God, I just look at that video of that poor woman who was acid attacked yesterday, right? And it's just like, she was just taking her trash out.
She didn't even see anybody was there.
Yeah, she was just.
It was from behind.
Ugh.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
haven't watched it. So there's a video actually of the attack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a security footage from like the
Oh, I
other
see.
apartment building.
It's hard to watch.
It's
Ugh.
hard to watch.
Right. She was, and has anybody heard any news about how she's doing at all?
What was that?
Has anyone heard how she's doing?
I haven't heard any new news about like whether they like. I know Crime Stoppers put out a call like saying if you have any information about it, but like I don't know if there's been any new news about it since then, because of course with the rush of news that's been going on, it's hard to keep up. But like I'm hoping that she's okay. I mean, her face has been kind of destroyed, but from what I hear. But yeah, I mean, this shit's happening.
Yeah. And thank you for for creating this campaign and doing what you're doing, because as we talked about, I think I've talked to each of you about it. It's difficult when the news has been covering it, but not really. So not as much as it probably should be. And so sometimes when I post things on Facebook, my friends, especially white friends, will say, "Oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry this is happening," as if they had no idea was happening.
Yeah.
And that makes me really crazy, because it makes me crazy that people don't that I still have to at least tell the news that it's happening, because people don't realize what's going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like of course we're in the community, so we know that it's happening to us. I think this is sort of in general for any news. It's endemic, unfortunately, of like what's going on like nationwide at the moment. It's sort of the problems of people of color are not particularly paid attention to.
Right. And how do you feel about Andrew Yang's op-ed, which was quite controversial, and how he said that Asian Americans should battle the racism through acts of patriotism and community to prove that we're American enough?
I think it's important to, I think what the heart of what he was addressing is this idea of what it means to take part in what is American. How do we go from feeling like we are other to American? And I think it's an important question to raise, but like I think most people have pushed back against him, and we can all agree, like trying to fit in is not the way, but instead, I believe, like in any intimate relationship you have, like with your friends, your loved one, family, like how do you achieve authenticity and intimacy with that relationship? You speak up and talk about where your boundaries are. You teach people how you want to be treated. You let them know the good and the bad. And you don't just not partake in the conversation. That doesn't make for deep, meaningful relationships. They're just more polite. And the same thing with being an American. Like to me, the why of what I make art is to redefine what is American. And I've had so many friends come and say to me, well, like I don't feel American, and people don't see me as American, and I'm not American. And I'm like, you're American because you say you are. America is built on its diversity, and like we will be a piece as a country when we all have dignity and equity. So we get to say, to speak on Andrew Yang's, like, okay, yeah, it's important for us to partake in the conversation of what it means to be American, but by doing that, we do it authentically by saying, by standing up and saying, hey, you can't treat us like this because we are American and we do belong here. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of like knee-jerk reaction about how shitty his response was, and it really, was really tone deaf. Great, but like the important thing is this question. He's speaking to something, and it would be wise of us to look at that question and answer it. I mean, he had the wrong answer, but it's the right question.
Absolutely, and I think what is interesting to look at is the definition of American, and what we're fighting for, and like what we're in his context, what he thinks what we need to prove. I have found it very. I found a lot of like mental comfort in this idea that Michael Moore, documentarian, you may love him, you may hate him. I like his movies, but his documentary Fahrenheit 11/9, he talks about how that everyone talks about what is the America we're fighting for, and the truth is that we really haven't even been that America that we've wanted. And so it's not about going back to making America great again, because it wasn't great for a long time for people who, for civil rights, for women's equality. You know, when people didn't even have a vote in the electorate for a long time, like how can you say that that's a democracy? We really haven't been that for a while. Anyways, this is a long wash point to get to that. What I do think Andrew Yang is correct about is that it comes back to this community building and keeping people, as Diane was saying, keeping people in check, having the intimate relationship conversations, because that's how we're going to be able to put out our definition of it. I don't think, you know, if people think that being American is just because you like a flag and like show up for things, like that's at least for me, that the past 3.5 years have taught me that I'm really trying to take care of the things that I believe in, you know, even if it's not the popular moderate opinion, like, and it doesn't mean you have to be extreme about things, but it is this being tired of being told this is what a model Asian is like. And so, you know, it was tone deaf. I feel bad for him because he has a lot of other good ideas, but you know, I guess I'll chalk it up to maybe a gaffe for him.
Yeah, it was a pretty major gaffe, I'd say.
A learning curve, yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to be under that type of microscope. Like, you know, sometimes you say shit and you're like, ooh, but that's, you know, and hopefully he's realized his error. Like, you know, I don't think this should discredit him or cancel him out, but
well,
you know,
he hasn't apologized or anything yet, or like come out with any sort of statement for it yet. Like
Can you imagine how embarrassed he is, though? I mean, like,
100 billion%.
I don't know. I mean, he hasn't responded to it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think there are people who support what he says, so I'm not sure if he's.
That's true.
Embarrassed.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, Lily, I think that's the other extreme important part is that we know all the people who are mad about it. Like, we really need to engage with the people who do think that there was logic behind that, and you know, and start there. Because yeah, if we can't even all agree on the definition of what we're trying to achieve, then no wonder we're in the mess that we have.
I am all about that conversation. I'm all about like communing and conversing with our communities, and that's why I just really, you know, applaud what you're doing, Lily. I just think that this Mu-tini Hour and what Theater Mu is like standing for in your neck of the woods, as they say, and bridging all of us is just, I mean, it's such leadership, and people are watching and people are engaging because you're giving them space to do that. So thank you. Thank you for giving us a space to do it.
I do just want to take a moment and like do a big shout out for Minneapolis and the Twin Cities theater community and the artists out there. And you know, Mu was founded by Rick Shiomi back in a time when there were no Asians in Minnesota doing art. And here's this Canadian Japanese guy like, oh, let's start it. And so, you know, it has grown into an amazing community, produced amazing works, helped a lot of artists globally with projects. And, you know, Minnesota is sometimes one of those states that people don't think about when it comes to producing art and like theater and the opportunity and the stories and the messages that they're talking about. But Minneapolis is a very progressive city. And I biasly would say that the opportunities to be an artist outside of New York and LA, it's rivals Chicago, if not surpasses it, as far as,
I agree.
You know, I think
everybody always talks about Chicago, but it's like there's more stuff going on.
There really is, and it's diverse. Like that is one thing. Every time I come home to do a show here, I always try to see my friends and what they're working on, and I'm always inspired by how much diversity is celebrated on this stage.
It's so amazing to hear.
We'd love to have you back, Brian, and you know, Brian's a testament to the Mu artists that have been built by Rick and the theater. And as some of you know, I'm new here, but I wanted to say that, you know, Minneapolis, St. Paul is the highest grossing for per capita, the highest grossing city behind New York in ticket sales. So I was really surprised about that when, because I grew up in California and then lived in New York. So I'm a coastal girl. And I was surprised too when they said, oh, there's this, I knew about Mu, but I was surprised at how vibrant the theater community here is. And the theater artists here are so generous and talented. So thanks for the shout out for the Mu community. And
yeah,
Diane, thanks also for your shout out. And I just have to say, like, we're grateful for the work you're doing, you and Ariel are doing in New York. And I truly feel like if we amplify each other's voices, like it's only better for all of us, right?
Yeah.
And theater as an act is a local thing. That's what it is. You have to be in person to do it. And now that now that we can we're forced to do our work virtually, that sucks. But the silver lining is that we can connect nationally and internationally, and get the word out and collaborate, even though we're not in the same city. And so I think with you all, amplifying your voice and what you're doing in New York and nationally, and then amplifying what we're doing here and in in California or Seattle or Portland, like everywhere, Chicago, it just makes all of us more powerful. And Ariel, you're doing a lot of that work at CATA, which is the Consortium of Asian American Theater Artists. And so go to their Facebook page also and look them up, because CATA is doing a lot of work in Asian American solidarity in theater arts, and they're really powerful organizations. So I'm just grateful for all of you for being part of this work. And I know we're getting close to the end of our time together, so I wanted to do something fun. And we're talking about talking about
racism, so let's have fun.
Well, come on. Even social activists need a break, right? From
yes,
yes, my lord.
Oh my God, yes.
Mu-tini hour with drinks. That's why we call it Mu-tini hour.
I need a champagne.
Poor Diane is on the Whole30. Like, I am so seriously, props to you for doing that while you're in lockdown. Like, I am really impressed with you.
I appreciate it.
Diane
Actually,
is
it's
a very
keeping
committed
me.
person.
It's keeping me, I think, a lot more stable, like emotionally stable, because I found this weird thing that when I have dairy, I don't know what happens to me, you guys, but it's like I get really emotional, and it's like
really?
it's like I've been raging. Like, it's like I get like, don't talk to me like that. And like I'll hear myself say this to my husband. I'll be like, oh God, I had a milkshake today. Or like, oh God, I had a cheesecake, and that's always like my comfort.
A whole cheesecake.
A whole cheesecake, man.
I will have to share a recipe for like this wonderful tofu cheesecake that I know.
All right.
Oh my gosh, please share the recipe and post the pictures. I've also been baking. I have to say that David Hume said that after we come out of lockdown, Ariel needs to do a pop-up.
Yeah, you should. I would eat everything.
Yeah.
So
I'm full fat, unfortunately, with butter and everything.
So on that note, I asked all our guests to how they were coping. How they were surviving through, or what they were doing to remain healthy in all ways during the lockdown, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. And so I asked them to bring an object. We're going to do a little show and tell on what has helped them through this time. And so who would like to go first?
You guys go first. I'm going to go grab my thing.
I'm going to grab, where's my thing?
I need a second.
I'll go first. I'll go first while you get your things. So I'm in lockdown with my husband Eric and my son Cole, and it was Passover yesterday. Well, it's Passover now, but it started 2 nights ago, and we had our dinner yesterday. And just so I don't want to sound like I'm a Passover expert, because I'm not. And my husband is Jewish, but he's not observant. So this is the first time we've actually celebrated Passover. And part of it's because my sister Sarah is married to a Jewish man and they have a Seder every year. So my sister asked my son to create a Passover card. And as some of you know, with Passover, it's not only about the Jewish people fighting for their freedom, but in modern, in contemporary times, we ask ourselves how we can be free in our own lives, in battling, chains of what we deal with in modern times, politically, socially, etc. And so he made this card, and it said, "I hope we can break free from the impact of COVID-19." And he made this political cartoon.
Oh.
And my son is 10.
Oh, wow.
So it says, "We can break free," and it's the chain is to COVID, and he's hoping we can break free from COVID.
Wow, Cole, good job.
That is awesome.
And is the staff that person is holding, it looks almost like, I know it's like, it looks almost like an antivirus in a way.
I think it's also a COVID, but yeah, I'll tell him that it looks like an anti-COVID.
It looks like it's like, because it might be the thing that like plugs into the other holes that neutralize the virus.
Yeah. So I'm
that's
thinking
impressive.
maybe he might have a career as a political cartoonist someday.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll get him in the New Yorker.
Yeah. So anyway, so thanks to my son and for my son Cole for, giving me some light through this time. I'm grateful.
What a blessing. I saw a picture of him on your Facebook because now we're friends and he is adorable. I was like, what a pumpkin. Speaking of pumpkins, this is Merman. Merman's really pissed off right now, but he also had his neck shaved because he went to the. He had his neck shaved because he went to the. Oh yeah, he's angry. He's angry with mommy. But we've been he's my duet partner and he's gone. But we make duets on Smule together. If you follow me on
They're
Smule.
wonderful. They're amazing.
I want to see them. Where are they? Where can I find them? Where can we find them as our
They're
audience?
on my Facebook page right now.
I'm gonna look for them because I want to see these videos. I love
kind of like they're kind of
They're
little duets. There's a couple more. He plays Billy Bigelow in one of them, and then I'm Belle and he plays another animal, and then one of them he plays both Maria and Anita, and then we both switch off playing Maria and Anita.
Oh my gosh, I wish we had it to show. But go onto our Facebook
you
page.
don't.
You can see the cat videos. Do you know Prince Gomovilas, the playwright?
Yes, Prince is awesome.
So Prince has, and rest in peace, his cat just passed this year. So shout out to Prince, and our heart is with you. But he used to make these awesome, very short videos about his cat. And they're like amuse-bouche stories, and they're wonderful. So check out Prince's YouTube page. If you go Google Prince Gomovilas cat, you'll probably find him.
Yeah.
And Ariel and Brian, what do you have to share?
Brian, you want to go?
Okay, I can go. So I've pretty much stayed sane by playing a lot of video games in the woods at my cabin. And this other game just arrived today. It was released today. Some people got it early and were like, streaming it on YouTube, and I was like, no, I can't look. But
But you were looking for it.
I scrolled quickly. I was like, don't look. But like, it comes with a collectible action figure.
God.
And
Awesome.
this giant, like, this is like a 10-pound bike. And it's just like a collector's thing.
They mailed that
And
to you?
then they mailed it to me in this giant box, but it's for the collector's edition of Final Fantasy VII, the remake. Basically, any gamer that's watching this right now knows exactly what this is and is in love. Yes, people have Animal Crossing on their Switch, and that's great, but this is what's happening right now. So I haven't played it all day. I've been making audition tapes and like prepping for this. So as soon as this is over, I have a tape to send, and then I'll finally get to play.
Dude, you're like the hot nerd that I always.
Oh, I am a nerd. I am a nerd. I don't know about hot, but I'll take nerd.
But I hear Final Fantasy is the game right now that people are waiting for. Final Fantasy VII. Yeah.
It is, and I have it. I debated on getting this collector's edition because whatever, but it's one of my Final Fantasy is one of my favorite things since I was like 7. So this is a lifetime like commitment to spending money on all things Final Fantasy.
That's so awesome. Well, I'm glad this really came at a good time for you, and then you got your hands on one of those.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was telling Brian that I had my own video game store, and it's totally going to age me, but years ago, like 20 years ago, I was playing Zelda on Nintendo 64, and Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And I'd never finished it. Like I played it, and then my housemate, who was my Zelda master, because it was before walkthroughs on online. And so he had moved out, and I didn't have my Zelda master anymore to help me through the parts I couldn't get through. So I stopped playing. Then I started playing again when I was pregnant with my son, who's now 10. So this is 10 years ago. And I started playing, and I had to start over because you can't really start in the middle because you don't know how to like kill people anymore. So I started in the beginning, and I got to the, no lie, the last world, and my son was born. So I stopped playing because you can't play when you have like a newborn at home. So I stopped playing and never finished, but held on to the Nintendo. So my husband, Eric, recently plugged it in. He's like, I want to show you something. I got into the TV room, and he had plugged in the Zelda Nintendo 64 into our TV. And he's like, now you have time during COVID, you can finish Zelda.
This man loves you.
20 years later.
This man loves you. He's like, he makes you drinks.
He loves video games.
Like he was like, go, be free, run, Zelda, like run.
So I'm determined to finish this time. I haven't started yet because I've been so busy with Theater Move, but hopefully during this time I'll find some time to finish it.
That's
anyway,
amazing.
So we'll check in, Brian. I'll check in on your Final Fantasy, progress, and I'll share my Zelda progress. So Ariel, what do you have to share with us?
Okay, so this is slightly dirty, but
whoa.
but like, oh no, she stopped. She was just doing the boob thing.
Can you get her to do it again?
She was just doing her, self-soothing herself. But now she's embarrassed, so never mind.
Oh no, I talk too much.
That's okay. No, this is Gogo. She is.
Hi, Gogo.
But she loves like hanging out in my lap and like hanging out in my lap and doing oh no.
What a pumpkin. She's like, bye, Daddy.
No,
bye.
she's like, I don't like hanging out in your lap.
I know.
Lie.
Please don't use me for your.
There's a camera on me.
That's a private thing between you and me, Daddy.
Oh my God.
There's a fan page that you can set
that was
later.
kind of creepy, wasn't it?
You can videotape it, Ariel, and then post it on your Facebook.
I mean, if you need money during COVID, like.
Oh, Lord.
I was a crazy cat lady. This is like exponentially like up everyone's crazy cat person game right here. All of us. We unlocked some badge. We all unlocked a badge.
Well,
Ryan?
we all have cats except for Brian. I even asked Brian today. I was like, "Do you have a cat?" Because if you
did, I was like, no. I'm a dog person.
You now have a big
like
motorcycle, so.
I have a giant motorcycle toy.
Not a motorcycle?
Well, no, the toy is a motorcycle.
Okay. It's like, oh my God.
Actually, we still might have one. I don't. My father likes toys, so he has like a motorcycle, and my mom has like a 4-wheeler at our cabin, and all these crazy things. And they're like elderly. Like, for those of you who have met my mother, she's like 5'4", like the tiniest little white lady, and just everyone loves her because she's super nice. But she drives this giant ass 4-wheeler that's like 6 horsepower, just like super charged.
Whoa.
Quite weird.
Does she really? I met Brian's mom.
She does.
She's the smallest, cutest little lady, and she's so sweet. But she has a 4-wheeler like truck.
Yeah, it's like she goes off roading.
I love that. Well, we're 2 minutes from 8:30, and I don't think I can keep you any longer because Brian has to. So, Actor's Life, what do you have to do, Brian? You have to send off an audition tape, right?
I have to send off an audition tape. Believe it or not, people are still casting. We'll see if any work actually comes out of this, but it has been a nice distraction to have things to just kind of randomly memorize one weekend, during the day. I have all the time to memorize, so I've actually found it harder to memorize sides because I have so much time. I just kind of look at them. I'm like, 5 minutes.
I'll do it later.
It's just there's no pressure, So, but no, it is nice. Like if you are an actor watching, you should definitely be on the lookout for as many opportunities. A lot of casting agencies are taking this opportunity to just get to know you. So it's a good opportunity to just send something you're proud of or film aside from your phone, and you know, hopefully it leads to something.
Yeah, and there are lots of, for those of you who don't know, and your actors out there, there's a lot of networks and casting directors just looking right now because they can't be in production. So they're just looking for and trying to meet actors they don't know yet. So shows like NCIS, they're doing general calls for actors so they can meet different people for their shows. So take a look at Actors Access and you can find those. I wanted to say that there was some great conversation happening in the comments, and I want to apologize for all of you. There's no way for us to dive into every facet of this topic in like an hour and a half. So we appreciate you keeping it active and vibrant in the comment section. You know, we all are experts on so many things, and we all have so much to offer. So thank you for keeping the conversation even more vibrant in the chat section. And I'm sorry if we didn't get to all your questions or comments, but keep joining us, and we will try to get to as many as we can. So before
I agree that Steven Universe is a wonderful thing, and that if more of the world watched Steven Universe, we probably would be in a much better place.
There's a side conversation in the chat about Steven Universe. My son loves Steven Universe, so we watch it.
It's an incredible show.
It's a great show.
And yeah, shout out to Jen Paz.
Jen Paz, right?
Yeah.
Love her.
She's a voice in the show.
Oh my God.
Do you know her? Because if my son could like get an email from her, he would be. You don't know.
I'll try. I mean, we did a tour once together to Tokyo during the earthquake, and so we were all kind of bonded together through that, and we've worked a little bit together. But yeah, I'm a huge Jen fan, and it's been awesome to watch her on the show.
She's an actor on it, right? She's a voice on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'll be in touch with you, Brian, about that.
And one last shout out. If you can, because you know, support the local businesses that you have around, mom and pop shops. Hi, Cole, are struggling. And also, I just want to, you know, my best friend in the Twin Cities has a restaurant called Apoy. It's a Filipino bistro. He's reinventing his menu. He's trying things out. I just had his
shout out to
Sherwin Resurrection. I just had his new, it was a, oh my gosh, what was it? A Filipino poor boy. And it was like so good. It's
delicious. His food is delicious. You all should go get takeout from him.
Exactly. He's doing curbside pickup, all the food things, like send him an order. And
it's called Apoy, A-P-O-Y.
Yeah. He's based 43rd and Nicollet. So,
and we may
he was voted top 8. He was 18 out of, I think, top 30 Filipino restaurants in America. So he has done a lot of work with it in just 2 years.
And we may have him on a Mu-tini hour coming up.
Ooh,
yeah,
we should.
Yeah, on that. Let's go on, Brian.
I was just gonna say, because he's also a Mu artist.
Yes.
He's worked a lot with them, and also has one of the sickest singing voices you will ever hear. Like, it is, there's a natural talent with him that you can't teach what he does. And it's like, so if you all go eat at his restaurant, and then when karaoke comes back, once this all opens back up, go out and do karaoke on a Saturday night. It's amazing.
At Apoy, because they do Saturday night karaoke.
I want to go.
Oh yeah,
super fun.
I brought Lily to them during Interstate, and she is a convert. She was like, we had great times. It was,
oh my God, we were there till like 3 in the morning, and I heard they were there till like 4:30.
That's time with Brian. That's what Brian does.
So it's not just me, it's Brian.
It's like you end up in the bowels of K-Town, drunk, and like giving the best performances of your life. Like, that's what it is. I mean, Ariel, we've done that. Like, that's friendship with Brian. I mean, it's many.
That is friendship. Yeah.
But he expressed, that's his love language.
I wish I'd known that before I went in, because I had no idea. I literally like drove by the restaurant and I was gonna leave, and Brian saw me in the car and he's like, "Hey!" And I was like, "Oh no, I have to go in."
Tractor beam to karaoke in the bells.
5 hours later, she went home.
Yeah, exactly. 5 hours later, I went home. Anyway, go to Apoy, everybody. Sherwin's awesome. We're gonna have him on the show probably in the coming weeks. Speaking of that, I want to just plug our next few weeks. We have really exciting guests coming on. So next Friday, Lauren Yee is coming on.
Oh,
Talk about Cambodian rock band, and she's
Love her.
friends. Oh my gosh, you have a C-Clothes shirt on.
yes.
Perfect plug. Oh my gosh, Ariel. I didn't notice until now. I should have worn my C-Clothes earrings. So she's coming on with some people from the creative team and the company.
Amazing.
Check out that next Friday, and please sign up to attend Mu-tini Hour next week. And if you do that, Kevin's going to throw in the comment section the link. If you do that, leave a note on who else you'd like to see in upcoming Mu-tini Hours. And then the following week, on the 24th, we're having Jay Kuo, the composer, lyricist of Allegiance, and he's going to be with George Takei. So George Takei.
I love those guys.
Oh.
Uncle George.
Uncle George.
And we may have a special guest come on to that too. We're still working that out. So
That's
next
awesome.
week, Lauren Yee, the following week, George Takei and Jay Kuo. And please sign up for the Mu-tini Hour, sign up in RSVP, and let us know who else you'd like to see on our hour, because we know a lot of people, but we don't know all the people. So yeah. And if you'd like to donate, what's that?
Make a contribution to Theater Move.
Oh, thank you, Ariel, for saying that. Thanks for saying that. Yes, if you'd like to donate, if you like our programming, please do so. The link is tagged or pinned in the comments. And also, please donate to Racism is a Virus. They're trying to raise money to create these wonderful t-shirts, and all of us at Mu will be wearing them to support them. And they could use your help in getting the word out to fight racism during this extraordinary time. And you can also see their link in the comments and go to their Facebook page, which is Racism is a Virus. So thank you all for coming. And if you can, the three of us can, or the four of us, can we just hang out a little bit longer after the live so we can say our proper goodbyes?
Yeah,
and for now, we'll say goodbye to everyone out there, and we'll see you next Friday at 7 o'clock Central Time. Stay safe, stay healthy in all ways. And thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.